Hello friendos, it's Bella from the Bookish Badger, and today I'm coming at you guys with my 2018 Reading Year in Review. First of all, Happy New Year, you guys. It's been a hot minute since I've posted a booktube video, and this year I'm really going to try to condense the amount of minutes between posting because I really love booktube so much and I really love talking to you guys and being a part of this community, so I really would like to try to up my involvement this year. And I can't believe it's 2019. What the heck? I feel like I was just posting my 2017 Reading Year in Review, and in that one I remember saying 2018 sounded like a fake year, and 2019 doesn't sound like a fake year to me. It just seems like it shouldn't be here because it's still 2018. What are we doing? January was yesterday and Halloween was a few minutes ago. Where are you, 2018? Why have you disappeared? Why is it 2019 now? See, I can't even say it right. So without further ado and commotion, I'm going to get right into it. If you've seen my 2017 Reading Year in Review, you'll know the format. If not, I'll link that down below, but basically I'm just gonna go over some stats and my favorite and least favorite books of the year. So here we go. We are all aware, I'm pretty sure we're all aware of the famed Goodreads reading challenge, and for 2018 I set my goal to 35 books, and the year before that, even though I read far more than that amount, I still wanted to lowball it because it was the first time I had read that much. So I set it for 35 books, and not only did I match what I read in 2017, because in 2017 I think I read like 52 books, I exceeded that because I read 59 books in 2018, which really pleased me. It's the best I've ever done, and it's the best page count I've ever done. In 2017 I read something like 14,000 pages, and in 2018 I read a little over 18,500 pages. So I'm really happy with that I keep increasing my reading amount per year. I really love the track that I'm on, and I would love to, you know, continue that as I go forward. Now that we've got all the numbers and that out of the way, let's get to the real meat, to the real tea of this video. Let's get to my top 5 favorite and my top 5 least favorite books of the year. As with last year, I am going to be starting with my top 5 least favorite so that we can end on a positive note with my top 5 favorite. And just a disclaimer, as per usual, I don't own all the books that I'm going to be talking about, and I have Windows Movie Maker, so no inserting pictures for me. So what I have, I will hold up, and what I don't, I'll just say, you know, title, author. If you want to look it up, feel free to. Starting off with my 5th least favorite book of the year, that spot is going to The Symptoms of Being Human by Jeff Garvin. The Symptoms of Being Human follows the story of Riley Kavanaugh, who is a gender fluid main character, and basically they start an anonymous blog talking about their gender fluidity and what they've been going through with it and everything as prompted by their therapist, but somebody in their school finds out and tries to expose them, which is the big bad no for Riley because they're a congressman's kid and their parents don't know that Riley is gender fluid. I would like to acknowledge that yes, gender fluidity is an important topic and it's not one that's talked about in YA very often, but the reason this book fell in my bottom top 5 was, one, the writing just fell very flat for me. It wasn't interesting, it wasn't pretty, which is the kind of writing that I've been into lately. I've been paying a lot more attention to writing style, and this one was just very plain and boring and just not my cup of tea. But more importantly than that, it made it seem like gender fluidity is the only thing that gender fluid people have the capacity to think about, which just doesn't seem correct to me. Like, it took up all of Riley's time and thought as a character. There was nothing else really going on in the book except for, I'm gender fluid and this is causing me so many problems, which of course, you know, I'm sure it would cause a lot of turmoil for somebody who isn't ready to come out, but it made Riley as a character very one-dimensional and flat, and like they didn't have any other personality besides this one trait of theirs, which is just not the case for any person, I feel like. So I don't know why this book portrayed that for this character. not for me, not my cup of tea. My fourth least favorite book of the year was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Y'all, this one made me so mad. Okay, let me tell you a little story. So Wuthering Heights is my favorite movie, but one very specific version of Wuthering Heights. That is the, I want to say 2008 Tom Hardy mini-series TV movie version. That movie is, it's great, okay? Because my mom and I love that movie so much, we decided one summer to watch every single version of Wuthering Heights, every single movie version. And what we found out is there's that one really good version of Wuthering Heights, there's a couple that are okay, and then the rest, which is probably like 10 more on top of that, are just comically bad, okay? So going into this book, I was hoping, hey, I really want it to be like, you know, the Tom Hardy movie version, which is like the best thing ever. And instead of living up to my hopes on that, it fell totally into the zone of the comically bad renditions and adaptations. And I was, my heart was ripped out of my chest at this finding. I was so disappointed. Now, I might do a full review on this because, fun fact, this was option C in the page 112 tag, and it was the one that ultimately got chosen for me to read. But to sum it up, this is fourth least favorite of the year. My third favorite least book of the year was Beautiful Creatures by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. So, this one. My brother, Q, of Professor Q's College of Books, has been trying to get me to read this book since he read it when he was like 15 or 16 or something like that. It has been a really long time, okay? Finally, this summer, we were watching a Morgie Reads video, and she was talking about The Raven Boys, which y'all know I love The Raven Boys so much. So I was telling Q, oh, you know, you gotta read The Raven Boys. And he said, you know what? I'll make you a deal. I will read The Raven Boys if you finally read Beautiful Creatures. And I said deal. And we shook on it and everything. So I read this, and I was utterly mad. Do you want to know the funny part about this one? Is that we were going to make it an exchange book club thing, which has been on our minds for a long time. We were going to do it a while ago, but plans changed and everything. But we were going to make this. We were like, okay, this is going to be our first one. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to have to reread it if I want to talk about it with you. And I was like, yeah. And so I was already 5 hours into the audiobook, and I just so disliked it. And he got 40 minutes into the audiobook, the little weakling, before he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I can't do this anymore. This is terrible. I have realized the error of my ways. And then I was stuck there 5 hours into the audiobook, and I couldn't stop at that point. I was already, you know, into the story. I had to find out how it ended at that point, even though I didn't like it. Long story short, plot summary, it is about this guy named Ethan who meets this outcast girl who comes moving into town named Lena, and they miraculously fall in love. But the path isn't so easy because she is waiting for her 16th birthday, in which she is either going to turn dark or turn light, because she is a caster, which is basically like a power witch person, sorta, kinda. Anyway, what I really hated about the book, what irks me so much in books, is when there's that whole thing of like, oh, I can't be with you, I'm dangerous. And it's like, no, I love you. No, you can't be with me, I'm dangerous, but I love you too. And it's that whole back and forth, like, the entire book of being like, oh, we love each other. Oh, we have to be apart because it's forbidden and I'm dangerous. Oh, it just drives me mad. And that was like every single chapter of this book. It was like that whole back and forth. It was so repetitive. And the writing, what, it was so very Twilighty, which we'll get to that later. But yeah, just I'm glad I finally read it so that it was off my chest, and now I can taunt Q and be like, hey, got me to read this book, and it turns out it sucked, and you know so too. Ha ha! So I have some sort of satisfaction, I guess. My second least favorite book of the year was We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson. Now, I'm not going to go into an in-depth plot synopsis or a in-depth opinion of this one because I do already have a full non-spoiler review of this on my channel, which I will link down below if you have not seen it yet, but essentially it's got the same thing of very repetitive line of thought with little to no character development, which is one of my least liked things in books. It irritates the heckity heck out of me, and that is why this one is number 2. And my number 1 least favorite book of the year, if you didn't catch my little hint earlier when I was talking about beautiful creatures, is Twilight by Stephenie Meyer. Y'all, so I sincerely never thought I was going to read this book, but if you have not heard of it, the channel PBS had this thing over the summer called 100 Greatest American Reads, and I decided that I wanted to tackle that list. I wanted to read every single book off of that list, and one of the books that was on that list, because it is by, you know, popular vote, was Twilight. So I ended up reading it, and I tried to go into it, you know, with an open mind because I didn't know, I had never read it, and I know that there are lots of people who love this book, but it had that thing for me that it annoys me so bad, is that same repetitive thing that Beautiful Creatures had, the oh, I love you, oh, but I'm so dangerous, oh, but I love you anyway, oh, but we can't be together, but you sure do smell good. Edward, a little creepy, okay. And the character of Bella, which, by the way, pains me to share a name with this character. All she could talk about, every other sentence, was the gorgeousness of Edward, how hot Edward is, how he looks like a model, yada yada, and I was so done with it. I was ready to toss myself out of a window. I was not there for really any of it. One thing that I do say I kind of liked was, and it's kind of controversial to say that I like this, but I was interested in her reimagination of vampires, and the vampire baseball game was killer. What a fabulous scene. Never knew I needed it. Great. But other than that, nope, not my kind of book. Thank you very much. Now that all that bitter tea is out of the way, let's get on to the sweet tea. Let's get on to my top 5 favorite books of the year. So coming in at spot number 5 is Ghost by Jason Reynolds. This book, y'all, okay, so this is another one that I would not have picked up if it weren't for the PBS 100 Greatest American Reads list, because a middle grade about sports, I just would have totally passed it up. But I am so glad that's exactly why I'm doing this challenge, to discover gems like this one. This book follows the story of Castle Cranshaw, who is nicknamed Ghost, and he essentially is pretty down and out. He lives in a bad neighborhood, his father is in prison, but he's really great at running. And one day he comes across this track team and he ends up joining, and it follows his story on the track team and all that jazz, and it is so beautifully done. I picked this up in a bookstore and I was there for about 2 hours reading this. I got about halfway through and I was really close to crying in the middle of the bookstore in the first 10 pages because it is just supremely well done and well written, and the way he makes the characters' voices, especially, you know, Ghost's voice, who it's from the perspective of, the way he makes his voice so authentic to an 11 or 12-year-old, I think he is, and yet the writing is so off the charts well done. When you can make really, really cool writing and make it sound like the character is actually saying it, that is the mark of a good writer. This was just excellent, executed so well, and I would absolutely recommend, even if you don't think you're going to like it, even if it's not a premise that initially intrigues you, because like I said, I'm not really a sports book kind of gal, but this one really, really hit the mark. Coming in at number 4 is Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life by Brian Lee O'Malley, which is the first book in the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World series, and it's a graphic novel series. Just, oh my gosh, laugh out loud funny. If you don't know what it's basically about this guy named Scott Pilgrim, who meets this girl named Ramona, and he ends up going out with her, but to officially go out with her, he has to defeat her 7 evil exes, which it goes throughout all the books, but in the first one, he encounters the first ex, and oh my gosh, it has been so long since I had laughed out loud so often at a book. Just in my room alone, on the porch alone, nobody else around, I was just laughing my head off. It was so funny. The art is so darn cute. The movie adaptation, as a bonus, is fantastic. All around a great read, and this one has been my favorite in the series so far, but it is a wonderful series to keep reading if you like the first one. And I'm still in the process of reading it just because it's been a while between me checking out the books, but the books themselves, once I have them in my possession, I read within a couple of hours. They are just great, super breezy, but super jam-packed with all of the fun things and cool writing and great art. Would recommend. Coming in at number 3 is 1984 by George Orwell. Y'all, such an important book to read right now if you would like to see some current events in America, perhaps reflected in literature. Also super well done and super terrifying and way too close to home right now, but definitely 100% worth the read. Coming in at number 2 is The Shack by William Paul Young. This is another one that I would not have in a million years picked up if it weren't for the PBS list. So The Shack is about this guy named Mac who goes on a family camping trip, and then his youngest daughter, while they're there, gets kidnapped and killed by a mass murderer, basically. Which, no, that's not a spoiler or anything, that is like back of the book blurb type of thing. So Mac, obviously, after this experience and after this trauma, suffers a lot of turmoil, and his relationship with God and religion is very strained, which is not great for his home life because his wife is very religious and he's always led a pretty religious kind of life, I guess you would say. But then he gets a letter in the mail saying to go back to the shack and Papa will be waiting. Papa is what they call God, in what that family calls God in the book. And so he goes there, and it's basically about his weekend with God and reconciling his relationship with God. So it's not a premise that I would have normally read. I don't consider myself a religious person. I don't identify with any one specific religion, but I do consider myself spiritual and I do have beliefs. It's hard to say how much this book meant to me because it spoke to me so much in how I think about God and religion and beliefs and all that, and it basically affirmed everything I felt and talked about it in words that were way more eloquent than what I could ever put together or say. And it also explained, I don't want to say explain because I don't want to, you know, take it as an actual religious text or whatever, but it sort of sorted out some things in my head that never made sense to me as far as religion and God goes. So it was just a really cool read to me to have that experience of like things shifting in my brain about the way I feel the world works. And when a book can do anything like that, gotta say, darn good book. Super interesting read, however you feel about religion. And can I get a drum roll, please, for my top #1 favorite book of the year. This is probably going to be no surprise to absolutely anyone, but it is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, and for that matter, the entire Raven cycle, because come on, I am trash for this series, you guys. As it stands now, having just read the Raven cycle over the summer and none of Maggie Stiefvater's other books, Maggie Stiefvater has become my co-favorite author, sitting up there on the same pedestal that I have Neil Gaiman up on, okay? Her writing is so lyrical and wonderful and atmospheric, and it makes you love the characters but also realize their flaws, and it makes you hate the characters you're supposed to hate, but you can't even entirely hate them because you're like, wow, that dialogue is just so incredibly well written that I cannot hate them to my full hating capacity, because oh my gosh, I cannot spew enough good things about this series out of my mouth. I just adore it to the death of me. So good. So good. The gods have blessed us, okay? Alright, you guys, that is pretty much it for this video. I am so happy with my reading year this year, and I cannot wait to see what 2019 brings for me. I would love to hear from you guys what you thought of this video. If you read any of the same books that I did that were in my top 5, favorite or least favorite, if you had similar or differing opinions from me, if you want to read them or specifically don't want to read them based on what I talked about, all of it, any of it, please leave it in a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, do not hesitate to give it a thumbs up, do not hesitate to subscribe for more content coming soon, and I will see you in the next video. Bookish Badger, signing off.